Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Hockey Collectors Roundtable. This is episode 8. I'm very excited to be talking about tonight's subject, which is PC exit plans. And some of you listening might think that, what do you mean exit plan? I want to have my cards forever. But unfortunately, as part of the human experience, there is no forever. So I think it is important for us to talk about, as collectors, how we envision our collections someday, whether it be when we get older or when we pass on, what happens to our cards. So I'm really excited about the panel that we have on tonight. All people that have been on previous episodes and are, as far as I know, lifelong collectors, in the sense that they want to be collectors for the rest of their lives. They want to be in the hobby. So I'm excited to hear, what everyone's thoughts are. So why don't we just go around? Everyone can introduce themselves, say what they collect, and if they want to, say one or two sentences about what they think about the topic, and then we can kind of just go from there, see where it goes. If you want, we can start with Al and then kind of go clockwise.
Okay. Hello, everybody. Glad to be back on a panel again. My main PC is a Ginla. I also have a pretty good Eiserman PC. These days with the Ginla winding down the cards, I'm starting to spread out a bit more. So now focused more on like soccer and different things. I like tonight's topic because it's, it's something that's important to me. My wife and I have 2 sons, and I want to make sure that things are ready for them when the time comes.
Calvin?
Hey, my name is Kelvin. Collects on Instagram. I collect Martin Brodeur. And I collect a little bit of baseball. But yeah, this topic's interesting for me because I'm kind of going through a process of not exiting, but whittling down the collection a bit. So excited to talk about it.
Reed?
Yep. Reed, I collect, Jason Robertson, Dallas Stars, kind of that thing. I think similar to Kelvin, I think I'm slowly starting to kind of whittle down the collection to more stuff that I really care about versus just like trying to have a large volume of the people I collect. And then, the end game, as part of the human condition is not something I think everyone really wants to think about. So I think it'll be an interesting topic to talk about.
Seth?
Hey, yeah. I'm Drop the Pucks on Instagram, and yeah, Seth. Yeah, I collect Ottawa Senators stars, some Calgary Flames stars too, and then a bunch of random. I like low numbered inserts, especially from Panini and Pacific cards. So yeah, that's sort of my collection, and jumping in on this roundtable last minute, and yeah, really excited to talk about this subject, even though sometimes we have to think about some things that aren't as comfortable to think about, but it's really good, and I think it's a really good process for every person, whether you're a collector or not, just to put life into perspective.
Awesome. So, I want to kind of start this out by talking about, kind of, where I'm coming from and why this is something that I've thought about a lot as a collector. So for those that don't know, my dad, the original Groton Cards, as I like to say, he owned a card distributor for a long time, and then he opened a local card store down in South Florida where I grew up. And there were, honestly, it was a pretty regular occurrence where people would walk into his store with these collections that they inherited. And of course, I think as most people in the hobby know at this point, if you try to sell a huge collection to a card store, you're going to get a pretty low percentage of the card's values from it. And I'm sure, all these people that have inherited these collections, I'm sure it happens every day where people that own sports cards pass on. As collectors, we probably think no matter how much we love our cards, we would want our families to get the maximum amount of value out of our collections when we're no longer there to appreciate them. Assuming that we don't have a kid or a nephew or something that wanted to continue on the collection. I think that's probably pretty rare. So that being said, most likely whoever inherits your collection, if you decide to keep it for your whole life, or if you die unexpectedly, they're probably not going to know how to sell cards. It's not very intuitive. I think a lot of people probably think, okay, I'll bring it to my local card store and they'll get me whatever it's worth. But as we all know, you could potentially be leaving thousands and thousands of dollars on the table doing it that way. So it's something I've been thinking about a lot. I know personally I have someone who I trust who's also in the hobby, who will, I've basically made him in charge of liquidating my collection if something were to happen to me. Have any of you guys had this discussion with a friend in the hobby and kind of figured out what would happen in that instance?
Yes, I have. I've got two very good friends that are long-term hobbyists. They're very knowledgeable. I trust them completely. I actually asked them first. I didn't want to just drop instructions in a will and say to the boys, okay, talk to these people, and they know nothing about it. So I had that conversation with them.
And have you instructed them? Have you, can you tell us a little bit more about what you've told them to do? Are they all just going to go to an auction house, or is there certain cards that you have earmarked for certain collections?
Okay, so one of the people that I'm talking about is an Aginla collector as well. And I've told him many, many times, if I still have the collection, if it's still around when I pass, he gets first choice. And that's going to be written in the will. So the second person that I talk to is very active selling cards, goes to all the shows, has the ability to buy large portions of collections. And so I would assume that that would be something that he would want to do. That's my instruction to the boys. I'm going to say, you talk to these two guys first. What they want out of it comes out of it first. And then you can listen to them and they'll help you with the process and tell you the best way to disperse of it.
Yeah. Al, you have a couple kids. Do they have any interest in any of your cards? Have you talked to them about that?
Oh yeah. I mean, over the last few years, I've been involving them in more and more discussions about my cards, so they know about my Excel lists. I've got every single Aginla card that I've ever bought is in Excel. It tells them when it was bought, who I bought it from, how much I paid. I mean, that information is limited because if something was bought 15, 20 years ago, those prices don't mean anything anymore. But at least it gives them a base to go from. And then when they talk to the other two people, going forward, that should help them. They both collected when they were young, Yu-Gi-Oh! And Pokemon cards, but the hockey didn't happen. So I can't see them keeping it. I think for me, I'm looking at it more of as a nest egg for them when the time comes.
So I'll ask you one more follow-up question. So based on what you're saying, is it your intention to hold on to the collection until that day comes?
Yeah, I've sort of based it on three things. So number one is my health. If my health is still good, I'm going to keep collecting. If I enjoy what I'm doing, then I'm going to keep collecting. If I still get excited about pulling new cards in, I'm going to keep collecting. All three of those check marks are there right now. So, I mean, there's no date set in stone. I don't know if and when I'll start selling things, and again, depending, I mean, my wife and I are both older. So if medical things came up, maybe I do have to start selling a few things.
Awesome. Really, really appreciate the insight. Calvin, Seth, Reed, do you have anything you want to respond to with that?
Yeah, I guess on my front is uh yeah, just things are changing in my life. Like over the last couple of years, I've gotten married. Now I actually have a kid on the way. Um uh so I think my exit plan, I'm number one, just thinking about an exit plan and what that would look like. Um, and I think I'll always be like a lifelong collector, but certain cards might come and go, right? Like if I need some more money, um, I'll sell some cards as things go down the road of maybe like purchasing a house, or things come up with, with kids and just life, if I need a new vehicle or something like that. It's definitely something that uh I think about, and I have certain cards that are definitely up on the chopping block. And sort of like what Reed and Calvin were saying before about cutting down their collection, I have a bunch of cards that I don't even look at anymore. And I'm like, okay, what should I do with these? Um, they're just sitting here and somebody else can enjoy them. Um, so yeah, I think like part of my strategy there is just figuring out like um uh what's going to happen next in my life. But right now, as it stands, I've just basically given instruction to my wife to either go to a couple of people, or a couple of auction places to auction certain cards.
Reed, how about you?
I guess only like I haven't really made many plans about it. I've thought about it a decent amount. Like I talked to you once about it, kind of half in jest, half seriously. But like as far as like concrete plans in place, I don't really have much. But like I feel like there's a few people in the hobby that I know collect Robertson that I wouldn't want them to get hands on the cards because of different reasons. But like other than that, I think I would probably good friend Devin at the shop. I would probably entrust him to kind of do what he thought was right with the collection, whether that's hold it, sell it, whatever. But I haven't had formal conversations about any of that yet.
So, does that mean that it is also your intention to hold on to the collection until you pass on?
I'd say like currently yes, because I assume some of you as well. Like you're not buying these cards to make money, right? You're buying them to collect them.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
like, I don't have any unless there's dire situations that pop up, like you all can imagine. I don't really have any plans on selling them. I'm buying these cards to collect them and enjoy them and hold on to them for my life. So I currently, think life can change, but currently the plan is to hold on to them for the extended future, as long as I can imagine.
Kelvin?
Yeah, I don't have a concrete plan at all. Yeah, like just like Reed, I thought about it inside my head, but like never really talked to anyone about it. But I mean, I have a friend that I've known since like grade school, and he's not really into the hobby, but like he's really into sports, and sometimes he dabbles in. So I'll probably entrust it into him, and if something happens. But I never had the conversation with him, but like it probably would go to him, and I do like plan on keeping it for like a long, long, long time, and I don't. Yeah, like I thought about selling to other birder collectors. If I really needed the money, but obviously I don't want to be in this scenario where that'll be the case. But you never know what happens in life. So I'm okay with giving up some cards because I have been dwindling down. So it's opened up the idea of me letting go of PC stuff that I thought I wanted to keep for a long time, like maybe a couple years ago, or even like back in like 2013. But then now, as time goes on, my perspective has changed a little bit.
Has your perspective changed enough to sell me your Martin Brodeur Bowman Chrome Gold?
I mean, I told you if it's the very last card that you needed, I'll get you the very last one.
You know, it's funny. When I was building the 0607 Cup Signature Patch set, Al told me he would sell me his Iginla if it was the very last card I needed. And
Yeah,
then
that sounded familiar.
it ended up being like third to last or something. So we came very close.
And I was so happy when you found that, Mitch.
So all really interesting answers. I mean, for me, you know, I've had my collection since I was born. Really, I've always had cards. Now, obviously, this kind of leads me to my next question, which is, which cards have you had the longest? So I can tell you that the card in my collection that I have, and let's say, just for the sake of discussion, when I say card that you've owned the longest, I mean card that is not just like a base card that you had as a 5-year-old that you got from a random pack, like a card that's actually like, we can call it a hit, that you've decided to keep. So for me, that one would be an Ilya Kovalchuk 0304 SP Authentic Sign of the Times, which I pulled myself in 2004. And at the time, it was a really big hit. For those that were collecting, you'll remember that in the early 2000s, Ilya Kovalchuk was one of the top players you could get in packs. So I was so excited. In 2004, I was 8 years old. And then I ended up getting it graded back. And no one really graded cards like in 2004, like an SP Authentic Sign of the Times. Got a 9.5. I still have it, even though I don't care about graded cards. I don't care about Ilya Kovalchuk or Sign of the Times. But you know, it's almost 20 years ago now I've had that card. So I'd be curious, you know, what cards you guys have held on to the longest, if you guys know offhand.
Well, for me, like I'm still relatively, compared to everyone else, I'd say I'm still relatively new into the hobby, so it's not too long ago. I think the first card that I remember having, that I remember buying, was a PSA 10 Haskin Young Guns canvas. And I remember thinking that was the coolest thing ever, because like the first PSA card I had, first real like ace skinning card I had. I was at his first ever game, so it was a pretty cool card for me to have, and I still have it, of course. But yeah, not as old as a 03 Kovalchuk.
Yeah.
I can show you the card that really got me excited about Iginla cards early on. I don't remember the earliest one that I bought, but this one. So it's from 0405, the rookie review patch auto out of 100. And that's the first real Iginla card that got me super excited about collecting Iginla cards. And when I would go to shows, I would always look and see if I could pick another one of those up as well.
Yeah, that's a great card. For those that don't know, that's the first year that SP Authentic put veteran patch autographs into SP Authentic. So those cards are pretty desirable these days. So that's an awesome card. So we can go around, and I know I did ask everyone to pick a card before the show started that they felt like really sparked what their current collecting is. So if everyone wants to go around and share what that card is, Calvin, if you want to go next.
Sure. So like I collected as a kid, but then I got back into I got into the hobby really seriously in like 2010, 2011. And I collected Brodeur, just kind of picking up cards here and there that I thought were cool. But then, you know, getting into the hobby, there wasn't a lot of information about hockey cards. So I learned through basketball cards, and I learned about like Jordan inserts, like the history of all his inserts and stuff. And then when 12-13 Fleer Retro came around, I was super excited because these were like all the old inserts back in the 90s, and now they have it in hockey. So my card of choice would be the 12-13 Fleer Retro Jambalaya. And that's what got me into collecting like really cool inserts and parallels and PMGs and all that.
Was that a card that you were actively looking for? Or did you just kind of stumble upon it, decide it was really cool, and then that kind of got the ball rolling?
I remember, I don't know if it's accurate, but I remember when I saw the set come out and I saw the card, I was like, oh, I really need to have this. And then, so yeah, I did search for it. I think I searched my email like a couple months ago. I think I bought it for like, back then it was like $40 or something, which was quite a bit of money too. So, but obviously now it's worth much more. So I'm very happy that I kept it.
That's awesome. But Reed?
Yeah, for me, it's the Emerald Surge Auto from 2020-21 Plat. I remember before Platinum came out, that was a card that I really kind of focused on, saying like, I didn't like, I knew I wanted to click Robertson, but I didn't have any big cards in the collection yet, and I knew that was one I really wanted because of the color match, and I just liked how the chrome finish on the cards looked. So one popped up on eBay. I had that was the first time I had really used save searches, and I was checking them all the time, and one popped up, and like within 5 minutes of it popping up, I sent an offer and he accepted it. I just remember being that's probably almost as excited I've ever been for a card, and that kind of led to me, collecting the platinum autos, and I have the full rainbow, and it's a pretty special card to me. And it would take a lot for me to ever need to or to ever want to move this card.
Seth?
Yeah, so when I was like 5 years old, my uncle bought me and my brother a bunch of 90s hockey cards. And it was, super cheap stuff, right? The junk wax era. But one of the cards in there was this one right here. And I was so jealous because my brother got it. I didn't get it. So this wasn't the copy that we received there. Again, us being kids, that copy probably still exists, but it's not in good condition. But I had to reacquire this one. And again, super cheap card, like didn't even pay $10 for it. But that was sort of what got me in, first pulled me in. And then the other set that really pulled me into collecting is these Pacific Atomics. And this is a blue bar parallel. So I think when I looked up, I got a couple of these cards at my dollar store, and loved the design of it. And then I learned about there were different parallels for them. And when I learned about that, I basically became obsessed with finding parallels, even though at that point, never picked one up as a kid. And it wasn't until a couple of years ago that I luckily stumbled across a hobby box of it, and pulled one. And then ever since then, I've been hunting those parallels. But it started all back when I was probably about 7 or 8 when that set came out, and just picking up a pack at the dollar store and just thinking like, oh, if I can get that red parallel, or if I can get that blue parallel, that would be so cool. Or there were also gold ones too. So yeah, that's sort of where it all started. And so a lot of my collection are rare inserts and parallels. Also, I do like autographs and jersey cards too, but I think some of my favorite cards are really parallels. So yeah.
That's awesome. I'll share mine. First, I want to get to some comments we got coming in. Tampa Home Investors. I don't know if I know who this is. They said forever equals casket cards. I don't know. Have you guys heard this? I've heard a few people like when I've talked to them about this subject, they say that they want to be buried with a card. I don't know that I would have any interest of being buried with any cards. To me, that seems a little silly, unless it's like some mass-produced card, maybe. But I know there's a few people that have that sentiment. Jeff McMahon's in the house, a longtime supporter of the show. We got Alex in the house. What an assortment of talent here. Yeah, that's one way of putting it. And then we got Matt in the house. Top tier. He's responding to Alex. So I'll share mine. As you guys know, my biggest focus of my collection is early cards from the Cup. So I'll share with you one of the earliest Cup cards that I got. And the first Cup set I ever built with my dad was the 0506 Le Cup signature patches set. And we were really huge fans of Ovechkin. For me, I had never seen anyone like him when he came into the league. And so I knew that when we started building this set, this was kind of the card that I really, I was like, we have to get this card more than anything. At one point, I had 4 copies of this card, and it's worth a lot now. But at the time, it really was not a crazy expensive card. It was pretty affordable. But it's the 0506 The Cup Alex Ovechkin signature patches. This is probably the nicest copy I've ever owned. It's got the full star there. And it's a game used, which is very rare for rookie cards. Before 2014-15, they never used game used rookie jerseys again, besides Crosby and Ovechkin and Mikko Koivu that year. So super excited to get this one. And then from there, it just kind of got me so excited about those early Cup cards. And to this day, those are still by far my favorite cards that, in my opinion, have ever been made. So for me, that was really the one. And I've had that card now, I guess, 16 years, which is kind of hard to believe. Makes me feel old. But, I still love it, just as much as I loved it 16 years ago. So the next question might be a little morbid, but I think it's an important question to think about. And think about it for a second. Do you care what happens to your collection when you die? And I'll let anyone respond to that.
I'd say so. Like, I think you spend all these years and hours and all this passion and energy putting into the set. I wouldn't want my family members per se, kind of like what we were talking about earlier, to go into a card shop and sell it for 40% of what it's worth. Like, I think I would want. Obviously, you can't really have any effect on it if you're gone, but like, I would want my time and effort and money to be worth something. I wouldn't want it to just be thrown away, selling it to some card shop who's going to mark up all the cards twice as much as what they paid for them.
Yeah, my answer is a little bit different than Reed. For me, I sort of look at it is right now I get the enjoyment out of my cards right now, and yeah, you do put a lot of effort and a lot of time and money into it, but ultimately you're enjoying that time, right? If you're doing it as a collector, as a pure collector, um, I really don't care what happens to it. I think just because I know, hey, I have no control over it. Sure, I can put something in a will or whatever, but we all know sometimes those things don't work out too, right? But I'm not going to be here to see what happens to it. So I think just sort of my thing is, I hope somebody enjoys it, or somebody's able to get a good amount of money. So like I sort of said before, I told my wife, she sort of knows what it's worth. Obviously my dream would be that, down the road I do have some kids, and one of them continues on in the hobby and really enjoys it. But if not, I do hope that when I go, they are taken care of. If they decide to sell them, that they can pay for bills or whatever, that can set them up. But if it doesn't happen, like, I know I got the enjoyment of having that collection and putting it together. And it was just a really fun part of life.
I think for myself, as I mentioned earlier in the show, I do have a couple of very good friends that I'm looking towards to help my boys and my wife, if she's still around too, with the dispersal. And I would hope that they would be able to get what they wanted out of it first. And then after that, as long as it's spread out and gives other people enjoyment, I'm fine with it. It doesn't matter like if, well, it doesn't matter how it's portioned out, I guess is what I'm saying.
Yeah, I'm similar to Seth, where I don't really care what happens after. I mean, like, I'm not around, to see someone else enjoy it or whatnot. So, if someone values the monetary value of the cards more than the cards itself, then that's more power to them. For my kids or family member or whatnot. But if I do have control over, if I was feeling ill and whatnot, and I had control of where the cards would go, then yeah, I would try to obviously give it to further collectors or other collectors that would enjoy the cards I have. Um, but obviously, it's tough to let some of them go, but I know they would enjoy it much more. And obviously, I'm in a scenario where if I was like super sick and whatnot, I can't hold it on forever, right?
Yeah, I think for me, I think on one level, I feel, similarly to Calvin and Seth, where, I'm not going to be around. So, whatever happens is what happens. But as a second generation collector, as someone I really have my dad to thank for getting me into collecting and starting my collection and where it is now. It is at least the foundation of it, the 0506 Cup signature patch set, is something I built with my dad. So for me, I think it would, maybe I can just call it a dream. But if I plan on having kids someday, and if I could, spark that interest in them, and if I could have a kid and they decide they really like early cup cards, like I'm able to brainwash them into thinking that it's the best thing ever, and then they have it for 80 years from now. Like, to me, that's like a very cool idea. It would be awesome if like these cards just stayed in my family for that long. um, but of course, there's a very good chance that I have kids and they all decide, well, who cares about these pieces of cardboard? I'd rather have the money. um, so I have no, if that's the case, I want them to have the benefits of realizing the value of the cards when I'm not here. But it's something I think about a lot. I'm sure all of us sometimes battle with that idea in their head. Well, what if I just sold everything right now? And how much money is that? Wow, okay, I can do a lot with that money. Would I rather have the cards? Gee, I don't know. I mean, clearly all of us, we make the decision every day to keep the cards. But I mean, how often do you guys think about that?
Pretty often, I'd say. Like more often before, but I would say, I'm like, what if I just sell everything and just like start fresh? I've always had that idea, and I don't think I have the courage to do that, but it is a thought that occurs in my head.
I've seen others talk about pruning their collection, maybe not blowing the whole thing up, but specific portions of it. Like Jeremy talked about it on his show, one of his shows. I'm not there. I can't do that. I'll give you an example. I love building sets. Okay. And just recently, and I pulled it out just to show. So it's this card here. So 15-16 Upper Deck Portfolio Hockey. Okay. There's 8 Aginla cards in that set. Just out of the blue, a couple of weeks ago, this showed up and I got it. And then I looked at the checklist and I'm going, oh, there's 7, or sorry, I've got 7 of the 8 cards. So then I went on column C, and guess what? I found the 8th card. So now I've completed that set. If I had blown up some portions, I couldn't have completed that set. And who knows which set it's going to be. So for me, I like to hang on to everything to the bitter end.
Seth, Reed?
Yeah, so I think I'm a little bit with Al there. I really like keeping stuff, and because I'm like, yeah, I never know what set I might collect. And I've sold a few cards where I'm like, oh shoot, now I have to reacquire it because I decided to try to go for the whole set or the rainbow or whatever it might be. Um, and but also sometimes I get to a point where with my collection right now, I think it's just more the pruning, because I have so many cards, uh and they're a bit all over the place, where I just need to like focus maybe on a few sets and getting those sets, and to acquire some of those cards I'll have to move some other stuff that might not fit my focus. But it's always hard. Again, like when you have some really good cards that maybe you've had for a long time, and you're just like, oh, that's really sentimental to me because I got that card pulling it out of a pack on my birthday or something like that. I can't move those cards at all. I got a Mark Stone rookie card, and I think it was a roommate of mine bought me a box for my birthday, and I pulled this Mark Stone rookie auto card, and I'll never sell it because it's probably only worth like 30 or 40 bucks. But to me, you offer me 200 bucks for it, still not selling it because it just means so much to me. Yeah, so certain cards are just like, if if there's a story behind it, just personally to me, I just can't move them. But other cards I'm looking to just sort of move on from and try to condense it down just to a small group of sets. So I have a little bit more room in my apartment, and I have a little bit extra money to really collect um, certain sets that I've focused in on now.
Reed?
For me, as far as like kind of what Kelvin was talking about, the more like, do you ever think about just selling it all and leaving? Like, every once in a while, I feel like sometimes there's this insurmountable mountain to climb with the amount of rookie cards for J Rob and stuff like that. And I always think like, what if I just say forget it and sell it all? But I think it's the community that really brings me back, and kind of the time and effort that I've put into building the collection I have, and the satisfaction that brings me every day. So I wouldn't say I've seriously thought about it. And then as far as like pruning my collection, I ask myself like one question, like, can I get this card back easily? And if the answer is yes, I have no issue selling it. Like I just sold my only out of 249 Cup RPA that I have of Robertson, but that's because I can easily get one back if I need to. I feel like that's a question that makes me selling certain cards very easy in order to get cards that are a lot harder to get. I think the only time I've broken that rule is I sold the Allure 1/1 I had. That's because I didn't like Allure. There's kind of a secondary question of, does this card really make you happy? And then that Allure 1/1 didn't make me happy. And as Kelvin and Mitch saw, I was able to turn that money into the jersey number gold Cup RPA at the expo, where I looked like a crazy person trying to pick that up. But I think as far as like pruning cards, those are kind of the two questions that I ask myself before I sell a card.
So let's do a little fun, not fun, but fun experiment here, where let's say something happened, there's a flood, a fire, something, you lose all your cards. Would you start over, or would you just get out of the hobby?
I'd say for me, I think I would struggle pretty hard with the loss of things. I might just wash my hands of it and I think I would keep in touch with all of my hobby friends, but I think at least for me, it would be really hard to start again. I can't say for sure whether I would or wouldn't, but I think it would be really hard for me to start again if I lost absolutely everything. I think that would be pretty tough.
I'm a collector at heart, so I would start over. But having said that, would I start over with Aginla again? Probably not. I think it would it would just devastate me to lose all those cards, and I don't think I could handle trying to rebuild that again, especially with the loss of like anything numbered like 10 or less, which is going to be very hard to find. So I think for me, I would branch out into new areas, maybe even go into a different sport like soccer, pick up some soccer stuff and start building sets.
Yeah, that's a great point. Now, yeah, I think I'd probably be in a similar boat.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'd probably be very sad for a very long time, but yeah, I would be like Al. I wouldn't go back to collecting murder. I would collect baseball or like a set I really like or another player or something. But I think I probably would take a break, but I would eventually come back.
Yeah, I think I'm almost in the same boat. I've definitely taken breaks from collecting, which I think is a healthy thing to do. Especially if you just make that, if that's like your number one priority. I've had it where it became my number one priority is getting cards, and sometimes it's just healthy to take a little break. So after like a loss like that, I'm sure I would be upset because I've taken a break, and normally it's because somebody's screwed me over on a deal, or something like that. And sadly, scams do happen, even if you're careful. Sometimes it just happens. Um, but I think after taking a loss like that, I think I would grieve it. I think I would probably say I'm quitting. But I know I'm a collector at heart. So I think what would happen is down the road, once I recover from that, I would just start looking at deals and seeing, yeah, it might not look the same as what I had before, but I'm a hockey collector. I'm going back into hockey, and I'm just probably going to start small because recovering from the financial loss of my collection probably, and then build it back up, but just probably um, probably go back and collect stuff and just build it up from there.
And if I could add something, I was just thinking about this. I think, after suffering a loss like that, you need a new sense of excitement. If you're building, like if I was going to build the Aginla stuff again, and I found a card numbered out of 10, it would bring back the memory of the excitement of that original one, and then it just wouldn't feel the same. So that's why I don't think I could do that. I couldn't rebuild it from scratch again afterwards. You would need that new sense of excitement with other things.
Yeah, a lot of great points there. A lot of really interesting stuff for people to think about. I did get a little backed up in the comments here, so let me just go through those. Matt says, for me, it's the John Casey 9091 Upper Deck card. So he's talking about, this is all the way back when we were talking about which cards kind of sparked our collecting interest. So John Casey, wow, that's a name I didn't think I would say today. Tampa Home Investor said, I think we should all care about what happens to them in the end. So that's talking about, what happens to our cards when we die. Matt says, like Reed said, we spent so much time making connections to the cards and the people you met along the way. Seems a shame to throw that all away when it's all said and done. Yeah, but you're not really throwing it away, because to me, the value comes from the time that you spent enjoying it. So when you're gone, no one can take that away. I don't think it can be thrown away. So that's just my perspective on it. He says, I like to find someone else that enjoys them on the same level I do. I've done that with the majority of what I've sold. It's nice to know that they are loved equally. Well, I don't know if anyone can love Marc-Andre Fleury cards as much as Matt does. So I would challenge that.
But I think on that point, like, it's kind of like, I think Jeremy's talked about it before, where he almost does a quote unquote interview of the person before he sells them the card, right? Where like he's much more comfortable selling someone a card if he knows they're gonna love that card, they're gonna enjoy it and cherish it in their PC versus they're gonna buy it and then 2 weeks later they're gonna sell it. You know, so I think in that part of what Matt's saying, I think really rings true, at least to my feelings on where I would like my cards to go. You know, I'd like, if possible, my cards to go to true collectors that are going to really treat them how I would treat them. You know, just hold on to them, enjoy them, cherish them versus flip them. You know.
Yeah. Okay, so now comments are going to go into what we're talking about. If we've ever thought about just selling everything. Alex says, I've thought about selling everything and then starting to collect assets. This is an inside joke for our friend Brady, who collects only acetate young guns. Matt says, so this is if we lost out all of our cards. He says, I'd be done with hockey and start somewhere else. Star Wars most likely, or something completely different. And I think this kind of ties into what Al was saying, is that we would need to find something else to get us excited if we were to start over. Because I think if I lost everything, it'd be really hard for me to reacquire the same cards and just have a feeling like it's never going to be as good as it was. I think it would have to be something completely different. Tampa Home Investor says, do you guys keep insurance for your cards? Any of you guys? Al?
Yeah.
Seth doesn't. Kelvin doesn't.
I've considered it, but I haven't like looked into it seriously. I think it's something that I think as collectors, as far as your collection gets fairly large, I think it's something we should look into, because things can happen. You know.
Yeah, it's something I did a couple of years ago, and I think once your collection gets to a certain dollar amount, and I guess it'd be like up to everyone individually what that number is. Think about the cost of insurance and then what you'd be paying every year, and just kind of do like a little calculation in your head. Tampa Home Investors wants Seth to tell what the scam story was.
It was not bad, but it was on Instagram. A guy that had like tons of vouchers. Like he had done deals upon deals upon deals with people, and it wasn't actually a lot of money. Like I know some people have got scammed out of thousands of dollars. We're talking $70 here, Canadian, so like 50 US. But this guy just scammed me out of a card that I don't normally purchase either, which is a Young Guns. I normally stay away from them, but it was a Tim Stutzla, Ottawa fan. I just wanted a second copy in my collection, and the guy that week, I guess, just decided he was going to scam everybody he sold cards to that week, and just left his account and probably took off with a few grand, because over that month, I guess, he had a good reputation of selling a bunch of cards, and like other guys in that deal had like $300, $400, $500 of deals go out, and I was just mad at the hobby there, because this guy had like 30 vouchers and everything. But it sucks even if you're careful. But yeah, it was only $70, but it's still not fun to have that happen to anybody. I felt more sorry for the guys that had like really big, hard to replace PC cards coming in the mail that never showed up.
Any of you guys ever been scammed in the hobby?
No, I've had cards lost in the mail, and I actually had this one was a little bit different. I bought a shield off of a guy, I think on Blowout. I think I connected over there or something. It was about $1,400 at that time, and so I hadn't heard anything for a while. So I'm trying to contact him, and nothing's happening. And then all of a sudden, I saw the card on eBay, listed by one of the big auction houses in New York, Evolution. I think it was Evolution Sports, something or other. So I actually contacted them and told them the story, told them what was happening. And I was able to get my money back, luckily, because it wasn't delivered. But I talked to them and said, this is what happened. This is what I was paying for it. And so the lady I was talking to said, well, I'll check with our main guy here and see. And they said, that's fine. We'll take that amount. And I got it from them. But never heard another word from the guy that originally approached me with this.
That's incredible.
Just left me, tossed in the wind.
Honestly, respect to the auction house. That's, I feel like.
And the thing was, the lady told me too, because back then it was emails. She said the guy swore to us that nobody lost any money on this card. So I don't know what he told them, because I had already paid for it. But like I said, I got that money back. So I didn't lose any money. But it was already paid for.
Yeah. Wow. Which shield was that?
Mitch. Mitch, come on. Here's a guy that leaves the volume on his cell phone up high so I can find it after I put it down 5 minutes ago.
Oh, sorry for asking.
I'll look it up. I'll see if it's in my Excel notes, and I'll DM you later.
Kelvin, what about you?
I almost got scammed once. So what happened was, I actually used to make YouTube videos about opening hockey cards, and it used to be like a really small community. Those, by the way, those videos will never surface. They'll be unseen.
Oh, come on!
I know you want to say Reed, but but I remember it was in 07, I saw the cards. The 07-08 premiered quad remnants patch of Marty St. Louis, and I bought it off this guy through YouTube, and it's probably through PayPal. I forget what I paid, probably friends and family. I don't know where the case was, but he didn't end up sending it, and then he didn't reply for like a very long time. And then the genius in me was like, okay, this guy's probably a kid around my age. I forget how, like 16, 17, something like that. I gotta, make a story that sounds, he'll sympathize with me. And I was like, hey, I really need the card. I'm going to university soon. I really want this card. I made some like sob story or something, and then he all of a sudden he's like, oh, okay, sorry, I forgot about it. I'll send it. So that was the end of it. So that was the only time in hockey where I almost got scammed. But throughout the whole process, I think it was like months, like 3 months or something like that.
So I'll share this story where I actually, now don't freak out, but I actually unintentionally scammed people when I was 13 years old.
Oh my God, you devious man.
I'm reporting you.
So I was 13 years old using a few of the different forums that were around. So this would have been 2009. And I was doing a lot of trades, but I did lie on the forums and said I was like 19 or something, because I thought that if people knew I was 13, then they wouldn't want to do any deals with me. And then one day my computer just completely crashed, and I couldn't afford to get a new one. So I had 2 completed deals. I didn't have a computer, and I didn't remember my passwords to get somewhere else. So for months, I had no computer. I had no way of accessing the forums and sending these people their cards. And I didn't get another computer for a year. And I remember when I finally got my computer back, I was so excited. And then I was banned on all of the forums because I never sent these people their cards. Eventually, I tracked down who they were. I sent them a package of cards, but there was a short period of time where I was a scammer in the hobby by accident.
I'd say for me, I've never been scammed as far as you pay for a card on Facebook or whatever. You send them the money and they never send you anything. Because at least for those, I'm pretty paranoid. So half the time, if they say send friends and family, I'll just send them goods and services with the fee factored in. I know that's not the best thing to do, but I want to cover my own ass. They're going to get the money right away unless it's like thousands of dollars. So like I don't see any issue with it if I cover the fee. But I did get scammed because I went and got them. So these patches are not real. These patches I unknowingly bought from someone who was also collecting Robertson, which is why I say it hurts me the most because there's a fellow collector that took these plus others and swapped the patches out. You can see on my story highlights, and I think Mitch's swapped patches page, the original patches. So these are both fake patches. And I managed to get my money back from eBay, but for a while I was out like $850 from this guy because he just decided to be a POS, like. So it was definitely a very painful experience, especially someone that I considered at the time a friend because he was a fellow collector. So
yeah, I remember last year when all of those fake stars patches came to light. Reed, at the time, I was really nervous that you were just going to quit the hobby because I knew you were pretty new into the hobby and you put a lot of money into those Jason Robertson cards, and now like 7 or 8 different cards got patch swapped by this guy, at least we know of. So I'm glad you endured through that experience.
It made me battle tested. It hardened me it made me wary of that kind of thing. Because before it happens to you or before it's happens to someone close to you, you don't really think about it at all. Like I didn't think about that as a legitimate possibility, like in the slightest. And now I see a patch that looks too good to be true. I really second guess it because I know firsthand it can happen. So I think it's at least for me, like obviously it sucked, but I think it was an important thing for me to go through to kind of get a better perspective on the hobby as a whole. There's bad actors everywhere and things of that nature.
Yeah, Reed, I've joked with you, recently. You've experienced a lot of hobby lessons in the last year, so it's just going to make you a great veteran of the hobby in a few years.
Yeah, crash course, right?
Yeah. Going back to
so Mitch.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
I just wanted to let you know I checked in Excel just now. It was Ultimate Collection signature logos from 2011-12.
Okay, yeah, I know
the story that I was doing.
Yeah, that one's a great looking card.
Yeah, that's a good year.
So, anyway, so going back to what we were talking about before, thinking about, what might cause us to, get rid of, our either our whole collection or at least a good chunk of it. I'll tell you guys, quite a while ago now, I built the 2014-15 SP Authentic Master Set. So I had every Future Watch Patch Auto, Sign of the Times, up through quads. I have all of them with Marks of Distinction, Immortal Inks. I spent, for a couple of years, that was my whole focus was building that master set. And then I had a personal issue come up, pretty much as soon as I felt like I finished it. And then I sold the entire thing for, at the time I thought it was a fair number. Thinking about it now compared to what they're worth today, I didn't get very much for it. But, thinking about it like that, do you guys have, this kind of goes along with pruning. Do you guys have, your minds, if something really happened, I would sell this to get my money? Or do you think about which cards you would sell if you needed to get a lot of money quickly and in your collection? Because I don't think any of us have thousands of dollars worth of traders that we don't really care about. So do you guys categorize cards in that way, like cards that you wouldn't sell but in an emergency you say like, yeah, I would sell this one to pay for a big thing that I needed to?
Yeah, I think for me, it's kind of similar to the cards that if some monster whale that I've been chasing for years showed up, which ones I would sell if I didn't just have the money to fork over for it. I think it's kind of in a similar category. I think more so I have cards, very few cards that I wouldn't sell. Whereas, like say, like you're saying, I need to get this large mass of money together for a house or emergency bills or something. I think there's more so for me. I have the short list of cards that I think I wouldn't sell unless I absolutely had to, and I would sell everything else. Versus I would pick these X amount of cards and sell these first. At least that's kind of how I look at it, I think.
I think I did have a few cards. I mean, I still do, but they're actually not all hockey cards. There's like a bunch of Pokemon cards that I collected. I mean, how long ago it was? Like 7-8 years ago. I used to play as well too. I just had this, and it was just sitting there. And then obviously the boom happened, and some cards I got for like a few bucks. Now they're worth like hundreds, or even some of them were even worth thousands. So like that's kind of my reserve. I have a few other sports, like I have some football and basketball cards on reserve in case if I need to make a big purchase. Actually, recently not basketball anymore because I sold it actually, but I do have other non-hockey stuff on reserve in case I need to dip into it.
I think for me, I'm going to finesse your question a little bit. I have 3 series that I would definitely never sell from unless I absolutely had to. Everything else would be fair game. So for me, it would be the Cup, SP Game Used, and UD Black. Those 3 series I won't touch. Everything else is accessible.
Yeah, I think I'm a bit like Reed, but I've really thought about it, and so like I had this one card, and I was like, I'm never going to sell this card, and it was out of 12, and somebody way back offered me like $80 for it, and I was like, no, nope, not even close. But part of me needed the money at that point because I was a student and just got out of university, and I was like, okay, but I could really use that $80. So I actually said to him, okay, you know what, 120 and it's yours. And he's like, no, I can't do that. And then the boom came years later, 2021, and somebody offered me $1,000 for that same card, and I was like, take my money, or take my card. I'll take the money.
What card was it?
It was the Patrick Kane EX credentials out of 12 green. So that was the green parallel. So they made an orange parallel out of the jersey number, and then the green parallel was 100 minus the jersey number. So whatever was left over from the jersey number out of 100. So in this case, it was 12 because 88 minus 100 equals 12. So it's a really hard card to find. I pulled it out of a $2 pack, or a $1.50 pack. I think I was buying those boxes for $30 Canadian with 24 packs.
Wow.
Good luck on finding those boxes. I think they're now like $300 Canadian, if you can even find them. Yeah, when I was offered that, I was like, okay, I have to sell it. Like, so I think when it goes back to selling, like if there, like I said, other than the cards that have those like really, like I pulled on my birthday or something like that, a couple of cards, everything has a price. And then, yeah, some of the cards you're not going to like the price that I'll start at if I'm not that desperate to sell it. But almost every single card will have a price. It might not be a realistic price because I'm a collector at heart. But again, if down the road I might want to buy a house, and you know what, maybe a good chunk of my collection does go because I need an extra 5,000 or 10,000 to put down on a house. And yeah, they'll go for again, I'm a very fair person when I sell. I know I've done a few deals with a few of you guys. I'm a fair person, so I'll just sell them at market value or slightly under, and be happy with that. So
Yeah. So that reminds me of a card that I bought last year. When I bought it, I was very dead set that I was going to keep it. It was a Jonathan Huberdeau National Treasures RPA out of 99, and the patch was like a whole panther mouth. I found it at a card show. I ended up getting it for $500, and this is when Huberdeau was, like top 5 in the league in points last year. It was a big card, and as a Panthers fan, that top patch, and I always thought the National Treasures RPAs are some of the nicest rookie patch autos ever made for hockey. So I was so excited to get it. And then a guy reached out to me. He said, "Hey, is this card for sale?" I said, "No chance." And he said, "It was the only time I've ever had this response to that." He said, "Well, how about I just tell you a number and you can say yes or no to it?" And I said, "Okay." And he said $1,000, which was still like that. I still thought that was like a very fair offer. Like I was like if I was selling it, like no doubt I would have sold it to him. But I even said to him, I'm like, that's a really good offer. It's more than fair for it. Unfortunately, I really don't want to sell it. And then he said, "Okay, I understand." And then the next day he messages me again and he says $1,500.
Oh, wow.
And so I'm like, oh man, like because I really didn't want to. I loved the card. I love it, but there has to be a point. And so I still said no, even though it hurt me. And then, like a couple of days after that, he says $2,000, and I was like, okay,
Oh, wow.
okay, you can have it. Maybe if I kept saying no, he would have said 3,000. I don't know, but I got $2,000 for the card, and then he ended up selling it as soon as Huberdeau got traded, and he took a huge loss on it. I think Albion stamps on it.
I was about to ask if it was Albion stamps because that's his profile picture.
Yeah. I think that's the same card. So I found it at a show here last year.
Yeah, okay. I was gonna ask that once you were done with your story if it was Albion Stamps who had that.
Yeah,
he's a good friend of mine. Yeah.
Yeah, same card.
That's awesome. Yeah.
So I think that kind of ties into my next question, which is, we say like our personal collections are not for sale, but is there a number in your mind where you think, okay, if someone offered me this, I'd be crazy not to sell it. So like for me, I was offered 4x, what I thought, because I thought when I paid 500, I thought that was a fair price. So if someone's offered me 4x comps on a card, it'd be pretty hard for me to say no. I don't know if you guys, have thought about this at all. Like, surely, like, I think all of us, we don't have a card in our collections where if someone said, "I'll give you $1 million for that card," say no. But, where do you guys in your heads, have that line if you can think about that?
I think it's kind of a case by case thing. I think for most of the cards I really enjoy, I think kind of where you're at, like 4x, it would probably be pretty hard to say no to. I think for those few cards that you consider like quote unquote cornerstones of your collection, even 4x I might say no. I think it has to be something, obviously not $1 million, but like something where you'd be a fool not to accept it. Where I guess you could argue 4x, but in a way, like if you're comfortable living your daily life without that money, that 4x offer, maybe it's more than 4x. Where you feel like you're getting more enjoyment from having that cornerstone piece in your collection. So I guess it kind of varies card to card, but I'd say for my general collection, I'd probably be at that same 4x number, the FU money, as people like to call it sometimes. That's kind of where I'm at, I think.
I think for me, yeah, it would depend on the card. But if it's for ones that like I planned on keeping for a very long time, it had to be like a stupid number, like 10x. Like some one-of-one that I have, you have to give me like 10x or maybe even more, to be honest, to like pry it out of my hands. Maybe I don't know. Like I haven't had anyone offer me, so like it's hard to put a number on it. But like, yeah, I don't know. That's just a random number I just thought of.
I haven't considered it for my Ginla collection, and to be honest, there's 4,000 cards, so it'd have to be a pretty big number. But I can give you one example. My property of card for Ginla from 0506. I have someone who not as regular anymore, because I've said no several times now, but used to contact me every once in a while. And the last time that he contacted me, the offer was about 4 times what I paid for it. It was cards, though. It wasn't money. It was in cards, but some beautiful cards, like the Iserman. What are those ones that are those cup ones that are numbered out of like 3? I can't remember the series now, but it was like Iserman and other Ginla cards. So I strongly considered the offer. And then I talked to a friend of mine on Hobby Insider, and he gave me some great advice. He said to me, do those 3 or 4 cards give you the same sense of satisfaction for ownership as that one card does? Would you enjoy them as much as that other card? And I thought about it that way, and I said, no, I wouldn't get that same sense. So I said no.
Seth, what about you?
Yeah, like I think it's case to case base, like sort of basis sort of thing. And just figuring out again, like what is main PC for me, because it does fluctuate. And it has fluctuated over the years. But I think, yeah, safe, like sometimes I pick up cards for super cheap. And I think we've all done it where we got really lucky where we've looked through a dollar bin or something like that, and we got a card for steal, whether it's an auction uh or a dollar bin or something like that. And uh I ended up like selling a few cards for 10x, maybe even like 20x of what I paid for it. Um and when somebody offered me that, it's like, okay, I know I got it for a steal, but I can't turn down this money too, because they're offering above, uh well above what I paid for it, but also above comps. And it might only be 1.5x above comps, but what I paid for it, it's just like, man, I can especially if it's easy to acquire back. Then I'll go for it. But if it's a hard to acquire card, if it's a low short print card, something people, uh, one of the cards, like these, Prism cards, Hockey Prism, they only made 2 years, especially in the first year. 12, 13 Prism cards. You have to be offering me like 10x for most of those cards, because the ones I'm collecting are out of 50 or out of 25. And I still don't even have 1 out of 10 because they're just so hard to find. And when people sell them, they're just asking through the roof for them. And I don't blame them because I'm doing the same thing, because I enjoy them so much. So
yeah, so I guess I should clarify. I don't know, maybe everyone's different, but for me, whatever I paid for a card in terms of me thinking about selling it is completely irrelevant. I don't care at all. Like if I paid $5 for a card and the card appreciates for 100, I'm not going to sell it for 50 because I paid 5.
Mhm.
Like I'll give you another example. So like this card I showed earlier, this Ovechkin signature patch. I paid $300 for it in 2007. There was a sale last year for $17,500 of this card. So, obviously that's a lot more than 4x. But it's not. It's still not like enough for me to want to sell it because the market is such where that's just what it's worth. And I still like the card so much, like even though it's gone up so much, I honestly never thought it would be that expensive. I always kind of figured it would go up, but it's one of my favorite cards. It might be my favorite card in my whole collection because of what it means to me. So what I'm saying is, when I say 4x, I mean 4x what I think the card is worth. Whatever I paid for it, I think is irrelevant. So I just wanted to add that caveat. I mean, do you guys agree? I mean, are you guys, if you guys paid, if you guys got a card for a steal, does that make you value it less when you're selling it?
No, I wouldn't say so.
No.
So you're saying you wouldn't sell it to me for $1,200? Come on. But yeah, no, I think, like, I mean, I kind of, at least for me, like for Robertson, I'd say I got it relatively early. I wouldn't say super early, but a lot of my cards that I bought are X amount, like a good multiplier of what I pay for them. That doesn't mean I'd sell it for 4x what I bought it for. Like, yeah, there's some cards that I absolutely wouldn't sell them for 4x what I bought them for because that's maybe market value or maybe lower, depending on, like, it just depends, like, yeah. So absolutely. I think maybe it makes it a little easier to sell if you're getting 4x market value if you paid 25% market value. But that doesn't mean I'm going to sell it for 50% of market value if it's 4x of what I paid.
Yeah. And, like I'm someone who, a lot of people, they don't want to tell you what they paid for a card because they think that it might hurt their bargaining position. Like, oh, well, if I know you only paid $50 for a card, then now I know that's what you have in it, so now I have a better bargaining position where I'm going to sell you a card. But I'll tell you what I paid for every single card I have in my collection. I really, me personally, I don't think it's relevant if I'm selling the card. I think if I'm selling a card, it's going to just be based on what I think is a fair price based on whatever it is today. That could be less than what I paid. So that's just my approach to it, but I know everyone's a little different.
I think most people are looking at comps anyways, right? I don't even know if they would need to know what you paid for it, because what you're really doing right now is looking at market and saying, what is this selling for across the board in these different platforms?
Yeah. Well, I mean, for me, I have a rule where I won't buy a card if there's more than 100 of them. Oftentimes when I'm selling comps or selling cards, there's no comps. So, it's a lot of just like, well, here's like 3 similar cards. And based on this, I think we can surmise that this might be a fair price. That's how, when I'm selling cards, usually that's how the negotiation goes. There's a lot more speculative, but that could be a whole other episode. How do we comp cards that are rare? That might be interesting. We haven't gone to the comments in a minute. Tampa Home Investor says it's interesting how most people would start over with a completely different sport or non-sport, and I think this kind of ties back to what Al said earlier about how you would need to find like a new thing to get excited about. And thinking about it myself, I think if I lost everything, I would probably collect something completely different. I'd probably find a set that I've never tried to complete and try building that. Me personally, I think I get the most satisfaction from set building when it comes to collecting. Jeff McMahon says insurance rates are very reasonable. Yeah, it's not that expensive if compared to how much you're insuring it for, of course. So I think it's a very worthwhile investment if you have any significant money tied up into your card collection. Tampa, so this is back to the scam things. That's why I can't stand when people get offended when I don't want to pay via friends and family. I'll even offer to pay the fee. And if they don't say yes, I won't do the deal. Yeah, I think it's a pretty savvy way of doing it. I'm the same way. If I can't, get comfortable enough with, vouchers from people that the person I'm dealing with is gonna definitely follow through on the deal, I'm happy to pay the fee. It's like 3% or something.
I wanted to just hop in there. I think people need to understand that even if you pay friends and family, your money isn't gone if you get scammed. There are ways for you to get that money back. It's not as easy as goods and services, but you absolutely can get your money back. So there are ways to charge back or get yourself refunded. You are not without hope. If you ever get scammed through friends and family, there are avenues you can go through to get your money back.
Can you? I know this isn't really relevant to the topic, but I think a lot of people probably aren't aware of that. Can you, like, if I'm someone and I pay friends and family and I get scammed, what should I do?
Yeah, so I apologize because I'm not super versed in that, but I know in other aspects, like I collect other things such as like skins in Counter-Strike or stuff like that. And there's a lot of people that are big traders in that aspect that refuse to take even friends and family PayPal because there are ways that people are able to charge back those funds. I wouldn't say I'm the most familiar with how to do it, but I know it is possible, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think that's something worth looking into for sure. Tampa Home Investor says, yeah, it's an awesome auction house. You're talking about the one that Al with
Evolution.
the Aginla show. And he also says, patch swapping is the worst. I think that's even far worse than trimming. Yeah. Anyone that knows me knows that I'm very passionate about the patch swapping issue. So I completely agree there.
Honestly, when Reed posted that, I did not buy a patch for like a couple of months. Like, no joke. I was just, after that, I was so like just ticked off with people doing that and being afraid, like, just, that fear of like, oh man, I don't want that to happen to me, sort of thing. But then, and just mad at the hobby for somebody saying, yeah, I'm going to destroy a card just to make a few extra bucks. And it's like, as a pure collector, it doesn't make sense to me. It's like, why would you, even if it's not the greatest piece of art, why would you destroy this piece of art to make a few bucks and have that to just to, yeah, and then sell it as the genuine thing to have in somebody else's collection for them to believe that, oh yeah, this guy wore this, or this guy played a game with this.
Yeah, so, and like the craziest thing to me is like I knew this guy, and he swapped a personal collection patch. Like, he swapped a Future Watch auto patch he had to make it quote unquote top patch, and he kept it. That is what really blew my mind. Is he swapped a Future Watch auto patch to put the D from the Dallas Stars patch in the very middle. He put that in the patch, and I remember him showing that to me, and I felt so bad about myself because I was like, how did I not see this when it was available to buy? And I think that was something that obviously he doesn't care about because he's just doing it for his own game. But I think is kind of almost an unforeseen thing is another player collector. I felt horrible for like weeks, racking my brain. How did I not see this on any Facebook group, any eBay auction? Like, how did he have this card? And he just made it. He just created this card himself. That really blew my mind, and it kind of everything added up once we kind of started to learn the hobby sins he had committed. I just thought that was a really interesting choice from him to alter something in his own personal collection.
Yeah.
If you're never going to sell something like that, what you do with your own cards, I think it's up to the collector. But patch swap, but like, just say you get an auto on a card, right? You meet the player in person, and it might be a Wayne Gretzky rookie or whatever, and so that's like, just by itself is very, very expensive, very valuable card, and you want to get it autographed. Some people would say, yeah, you're ruining the card. But I would say because you own it, and if you have no intent of selling it, and that's just in your collection, and you enjoy it more that way, as long as you're not lying about it.
Yes,
But-
Seth, I
right.
completely agree with your point, but I'm saying I think that's more equivalent. What he did is more equivalent to forging a Wayne Gretzky autograph on your rookie card, right? Like
Yeah.
you didn't go and meet Wayne Gretzky. You just traced over his autograph and said this is a Wayne Gretzky autograph. Like to me, that's more equivalent to what he did, and that is where there's a disconnect for me. Why you would even want to do that? I completely agree with. Maybe I wouldn't do it myself, but I completely agree with the logic of I think this would be really cool if Wayne Gretzky signed his rookie card, and I don't hold it against anybody for doing that. But like if somebody had a legitimate Wayne Gretzky rookie card and forged a Wayne Gretzky autograph on it, or trimmed their own Wayne Gretzky rookie card to make it look nicer, that is completely lost on me. Why you would want to do that? It's like, yeah, that's just completely lost on me.
Yeah, well, I think we could do a whole episode on this.
Yeah.
I did want to give a shout out to Name, who managed to hop in, longtime collector or longtime supporter of the show, also longtime collector. So that's the end of what I had. Is there anything else? We're almost at the hour and a half mark. Before we head out, any closing thoughts from anyone?
I have a kind of a slightly tangential idea. Do you guys think in the future there will ever be sort of a dedicated hockey cards museum or sports card museum of any sort? And if so, would you like some of your cards to be featured in that when you pass?
I could see Fanatics doing something like that.
Fanatics.
As far as if I like any of my cards in it, I would say no. I don't know. I guess I want all my cards to be in like real someone's collections that can appreciate it. But maybe as I get older, I might change. I might see it more as like historical artifacts. But right now, I don't. I just see them as something for people to enjoy collecting. But maybe in the future, I will.
So, like, say, like, would you not like say as part of the quote unquote Mitch Grotman estate in a imaginary hockey cards museum they display an entire 0506 the Cup signature patch set? Like, is that not something you'd be interested in?
Well, you know how I feel about displaying autograph cards.
All LED lights. There's no incandescent bulbs in this museum.
Yeah, I guess if they really, I'm sure if there was a sports card museum, they'd figure out a way to display them that didn't risk fading the signatures
behind UV protecting glass.
Yeah, I don't know. I can't say that I'm particularly interested. I'd rather give them to collectors that want them for their collections. Like, imagine you're a set collector and the card you need is in the Hall of Fame of cards.
Right. Yeah.
There is a section in the Hall of Fame that actually have cards in.
Yeah, the Hockey Hall of Fame has some, right?
Yeah, it's a very small section.
Are they any like rare cards that are like hard to get?
I posted about it before. It was I don't remember. I think there was like a Cup auto there, but it's not a great player. But I think there was like a Cup.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything particularly.
It's very miscellaneous.
Day with the Cup, when I was there, they had a whole little blurb about the Day with the Cup. And I think they had the completed set from the first year that they printed those cards in UD2. But I think it was just, I think it was loaned there. So I don't think they're still there, but I could be wrong. But my thing is, if I had a really unique card and it might have been like, very, very rare card of a very good player I would just want everybody to see. I would, if like the Hockey Hall of Fame was interested in it, I would probably put it up. like if I pull, the Connor Bedard 1 of 1 gold outburst or whatever that's going to be printed. I think there's a card like that because only one person can own it. I think it would be really cool if it was some, could bring young collectors and hockey fans closer by just going out and seeing it in the Hall of Fame or something like that as a public display. But it's not every card. I think it would be just certain cards that would be really rare or something very iconic like the Wayne Gretzky rookie card or something like that. But they wouldn't want my copy. So
So my take, Reed, when you first started talking about this, my thought was do digital version of a museum. It'd be nice to keep the cards in the hands of collectors, and allow them to move those cards through to different people at different stages, right? If somebody's building a set, like how Mitch does his cup stuff, and sometimes some of us will have that last card that he needs. If it was in the museum, he's not getting it. And just the sheer physical number of cards, it'd be so much easier to do it as a digital museum, and then it's available to anybody anywhere. I mean, you could almost think of it as Weebly on steroids.
Yeah.
Okay, I did find the picture. Okay, so there's actually some nice cards in there. I mean, I'll share it with you guys afterwards, but I see there's a few Connor McDavid cards here, actually. Autos. Is this a rookie? I can't tell. Let me see. See, you can see. Yeah, I'll probably send you a picture after, but it looks like there's
Is that Trilogy Pucks?
Yeah, the Trilogy Puck, and then there's the Triptychs auto as well.
Yeah.
There's this little patch. I don't know what set that's from. There's a patch as well.
But it looks like exquisite.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, there's another one in the back too. Is this Full Force? Yeah, there's a Full Force auto as well.
I'd be really curious to know how the Hall of Fame sourced these cards.
It's probably one collection, if I had to imagine, right?
So, Kelvin, was that from someone taking pictures at the Hockey Hall of Fame, or do they have a digital portal for people to see that?
I was actually there. Let me see, when was this? This was 2 years ago. This was November 2021. I was there and I saw that section. So, I mean, it might have changed. Seth, when did you go?
Oh, before then, before COVID.
Okay. So I guess
it was a long time ago.
They probably rotated like a curated section, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I'd be very curious to know how they determine what cards they put in there. So I guess we're at a little over the 90-minute mark. I think this has been a really interesting and helpful discussion for a lot of people to kind of, I think, have that important thought process in their heads. What they're going to do with their collections. So thank you guys all for participating. A lot of valuable insight from everyone. And we'll be back next week. Be sure to check everyone out on Instagram. And we're here every Wednesday at 7 o'clock Pacific time. So, thanks. And hope everyone has a great rest of their week.
Good night, everyone.
See you.